In the previous discussion, we introduced the Chinese military uniforms worn during the World War II. This time, we will focus on the usage scenarios of various equipment during this period. When most people think of the Chinese Nationalist Army during the war, they often picture images featuring German-style steel helmets and other equipment. However, these images typically represent ceremonial uniforms worn during military parades and events by cadets or instructional units, not the everyday attire of regular soldiers. To draw a modern parallel, it's akin to considering military academy dress uniforms as the primary image of the armed forces today, but soldiers primarily wear digital camouflage uniforms. While the ceremonial uniforms may look impressive, they are not representative of the typical soldier's attire. Therefore, in this discussion, we aim to clarify the distinctions between various types of equipment used in different scenarios by the Chinese Nationalist Army. Generally, military equipment can be categorized for specific occasions such as parades, routine activities, marches, and combat. During military parades, the equipment for soldiers and students appears quite luxurious, featuring items such as steel helmets, backpacks, leather shoes, and leather accessories, akin to the standards in European countries. While these items represent the standard gear for soldiers in combat in European nations, but in China, they are specifically reserved for parade purposes. They are showcased to reporters, officials, and the public, but are typically stored away and not used during routine activities. In contrast, officers have a more streamlined appearance, wearing equipment such as an armed belt and riding boots. Their attire is less extravagant than that of soldiers and allies. During regular activities in the military camp or during training, the choice of equipment depends on the situation. Typically, soldiers wear uniforms with a belt, sometimes with additional gear like a miscellaneous bag and water bottle. The water bottle is often secured with a towel, which serves both for wiping sweat and preventing excessive movement of the bottle. Soldiers also wear identification items such as collar tabs, arm badges, and chest badges, which are simple but serve as direct identifiers. During training, soldiers may equip themselves with ammo pouches, bayonets, and other accessories. The choice of footwear includes straw sandals, cloth shoes, and rubber shoes. In such situations, officers wear field service uniform. All badges are worn in clothes, with some officers still wearing their armed belts and many opting for belts, depending entirely on personal preference or unit regulations, along with riding pants or trousers. Depending on the circumstances, they may switch to leather shoes, straw sandals, rubber shoes, or cloth shoes. And the officer on duty needs to wear the duty belt, diagonally across the right shoulder to the left side. Execute officer wearing this duty belt are responsible for various matters within the unit, including training, task assignments, and other duties. This practice continued until it was abolished in the 2000s. During marches, soldiers' attire becomes more ample than usual. It will increase a lot of baggage, such as military blankets, raincoats, rice bags. In damp areas or during the rainy season, they are additionally equipped with bamboo hats. These items are typically tied to the body, with the field backpack rarely seeing much use. During marching, the identification rank insignia is sometimes attached and sometimes removed, depending on the battlefield conditions. During marching, the attire of the Chinese soldiers essentially involves strapping all belongings onto the body. Officers, keeping it simple, officers equip themselves with magazine pouches, binoculars, map bags, and pistol. For extended marching, officers may switch to simple straw sandals or cloth shoes, storing away leather shoes and riding boots. During combat, soldiers' attire becomes much lighter. Soldiers may remove or attach miscellaneous bags and water bottles based on the situation. In combat situations, especially in planned operations rather than sudden encounters, lightweight gear is prioritized. This includes simple magazine pouches, bayonets, grenades, and other accessories. Officers typically equip themselves with a leather belt, binoculars, a map pouch, and usually a pistol, sometimes opting for a submachine gun. The use of steel helmets depends on unit distribution. Not all units are equipped with them. The helmets may be of German, British, or towards the end of the war, American style. There are also domestically produced plum blossom helmets and May-Do helmets. These two are relatively rare. However, most units only have small caps, bamboo hats, or straw hats. Additionally, during combat, soldiers remove their insignia, sometimes entirely, leaving no visible markings. Sometimes only the chest badge or arm badge is retained. This is a Chinese military practice to avoid easy identification of officers and soldiers, minimizing the risk of officers being targeted first, in contrast to the Japanese military tradition. Without insignias, how can officers and soldiers be distinguished? Therefore, in uniform design, subtle details are incorporated to make distinctions. One of the most noticeable features is the pocket design. Officers have solid pockets, while soldiers have flat ones. During combat, officers wear riding breeches, while soldiers wear regular trousers, providing another observable detail. However, these details are hard to discern for outsiders. Additionally, in a combat situation, where the distance between enemy and friendly forces is significant, these details cannot be visually confirmed. Hence, these small details become the most reliable means of distinguishing officers from soldiers when there are no insignias. This practice persisted through the Chinese Civil War, the Taiwan Strait crisis in the 1950s. After the 1960s to present, even though the army saw no combat situations, therefore, there have been no instances of the removal of rank insignias. But according to tradition, if faced with combat, rank insignias would still be removed. In addition, during World War II, the nationalist forces under the Communist Party, such as the New Fourth Army and the 18th Group Army, referred to here as the Communist Forces. Communist forces wore uniforms distributed by the central government as well as self-made attire. But the clothing styles were quite intricate, but we may delve into this in the future. The Communist forces had different practices compared to the nationalist forces. Apart from the officers and soldiers at the Chongqing Liaison Office, the Communist forces in North China, Shanxi and Shaanxi rarely wore rank insignias, typically having only a single armband. Officers and soldiers had nearly identical uniforms. During combat, it was common to see Communist forces using field backpacks. Unlike the nationalist forces, they did not distinguish between parade dress, daily wear, field maneuvers, and combat attire. Their approach was more utilitarian, contrasting sharply with the practices of the central government's military. However, the customs of the nationalist and communist forces stand in stark contrast to the lavish uniforms and conspicuous rank distinctions of the Japanese military. In the future, we will provide you with an introduction to the equipment used by Chinese and Japanese forces on the mainland China and China-Burma-India theater. For those who enjoy our channel, don't forget to like and subscribe.